Hi, I'm Coop with Head Tyrolia, here today to talk to you about an exciting new collection in our boot line, the all-new Kaliber medium volume boot. So this boot is based off a 100 millimeter last, so really hits the meat of the market. It replaces our previous medium volume last, the Formula boot. Now you've seen a huge influx of BOA mechanisms on boots just in the last year, and we've gone to BOA as well because there are some particular advantages to it in how the usability works with you as the end user. How easy is the BOA mechanism versus a buckle? How does it change the fit of the boot? And how does it change the performance of the boot? Because there is some difference in performance from a BOA boot to a 4-buckle standard boot. Now, as you'll see with a lot of BOA boots out there, we're taking BOA as an industry and putting it on previously existing boots. At Head, we decided to go to a different direction from that and not put it on our existing Formula boot, but redesign the entire boot from the ground up to optimize its usability with the BOA mechanisms, whether it's a BOA just on the lower shell or it's a BOA that's on both the lower and the upper shell. So how do we change the last of the boot to incorporate the BOA mechanisms? The first thing we did is we raised the the rear spine of the shell much higher than you'll see in our traditional models. So this spine comes up higher and it really allows you to drive the boot laterally and get all that responsiveness that you need in the ski while maintaining a softer plastic around the foot. We do that by bi-injecting the boot itself. So as you can see here, there's a stiffer plastic frame that goes around the foot and up through the toe, and then we use a more malleable, softer plastic, especially over the foot, allowing the BOA mechanism to wrap. So we're trying to encourage a construction that allows that BOA mechanism to ultimately wrap your foot in a way that a buckle boot cannot. When we look at where the BOA mechanism is positioned on the lower, a traditional boot will have a standard horizontal cut right in front of the overlap. You'll see with this boot, we have an angled overlap, so the cut goes towards your big toe. Now, what does that do? Well, actually, it does quite a bit. With a standard traditional horizontal cut in that toe dam, the boot, when it is not buckled or the BOA is not engaged, the layers of the shell will sit more like this. When you have this angled overlap, it allows that upper layer to lay down closer to the lower layer so that when you engage the mechanism, you're just changing the boot in this sense. You're not changing the boot from a height sense. So you're wrapping the foot. You're not lowering the shell on top of the foot. So it works to the advantage of the skier to have this angled overlap to really pull the boot and the cables evenly when you're tensioning that so that you're getting a more consistent pull lower down towards the toe as well as up towards the instep. So those are two of the ways that we really change the shell of the boot to optimize that BOA mechanism significantly. Now when you look at the 2-BOA boot, and we have the BOA on the upper cuff as well, this BOA on the upper cuff really changes how the buckle wraps around your lower leg. And when you have different diameters of legs going into one type of boot, that can really be a game changer, whether it's a higher volume leg or a lower volume leg. The micro adjustability of the BOA mechanism itself allows you to adapt that boot to the specifics of your anatomy in a much more precise fashion. That also allows that cuff to stay in contact with your leg all the way through the range of motion when you're flexing that knee forward and you're coming back and getting all that responsiveness back from the boot. We couple this with a all-new Synapse Kaliber liner. And you can see that this liner is much more anatomical in its shape. You can see the lateral malleolus, the medial malleolus. You can even see a little bit of a navicular housing that is molded into that liner as well. So this liner works in a significant way with the nuances of the shell to really give you a seamless performance and comfort between the liner and the shell. We use what we call a dual density tongue through the tongue of the liner. In the top models of the 130 and the women's 105, you can actually move the tongue placement to better match the anatomy of your lower leg. We then use graphene in the liner as a temperature control system, as well as an antimicrobial system. Graphene is good for both of those nuances. And then that dual density tongue really allows us to distribute pressure evenly from the top of the tongue all the way down into the lower part of the shell. And if any of you have ever had shin bang through a misalignment of the tongue to the lower leg, this can really help eliminate that problem that occurs with a lot of skiers out there. So that's the new Kaliber Synapse liner. I should mention that the liner at the higher end is also equipped with liquid fit, which is this port that you see on either side of the liner. That allows us to add a paraffin wax, not a foam, not something that's going to set, but a more malleable paraffin wax that pulls down into the area right around your ankle bones, and especially in that narrow cavity around the Achilles tendon, to really make that part of the liner custom to the shape of your lower leg. So that's something that you can add when you purchase the boot, or certainly a year or two down when that liner starts breaking down, you can add that paraffin wax to the liner and rebolster the liner around the heel and the lower leg. When you look at the lineup of the Kaliber boots, you can get into the 130, the 120, and the 110 in a dual BOA mechanism. So that BOA, all that adjustability that's built into the BOA mechanism is in both the upper and the lower. You can also find that on the 105 and the 95 women's. When you get into the rest of the collection, you can get into a situation where you have BOA mechanism on the lower, plus our standard buckles with the higher end versions coming with a double power buckle, which allows you to extend that leverage over the buckle so that you can close it much easier. And you can find that in a full line of 120 down to 100 flex with the lower BOA and buckle upper, and on the women's side from a 105 down to an 85 flex. BOA really adds a tremendous amount from the personal nature of you getting the boot to fit to your foot that much more precisely. In skiing on the boot, especially in the upper cuff, you feel a real solid wrap around that lower leg with the BOA mechanism. It is something that's really, it's hard to explain until you actually go out and experience it on snow, but you feel like your leg and the shaft of the boot are all one, all working together, whether it's in a lateral fashion or a forward flexing fashion, and then reverting to that rearward support. The BOA lends a more precise feel in all of those directions. So I urge you, get out there, try the new BOA boots, try the new Kaliber, whether it's a double BOA, whether it's a single BOA, or you want to stay with a traditional buckle boot, we offer that in the line as well. So we really hit every type of skier that's out on the market with that 100mm medium volume last. Check out the Kaliber at your head authorized retailer.